Every story leaves something behind, a whisper, a shadow, a question that was never answered. Here, we dig through the forgotten files, the unsolved mysteries, the chilling true crimes, and the horrors people wish had stayed buried. From haunted legends to real-life nightmares, every tale is pulled straight from the horror archives. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves. Tonight we have 3 stories, all from people who booked an Airbnb and realized too late that they weren't alone. These are real accounts, the kind of details people include when they're not making things up, when they're trying to make sense of something that still doesn't sit right. Our first story comes from a couple who booked a converted barn outside Asheville. It was a 5-star listing with over 200 reviews. Everything looked perfect, but on the first night, they found a device that shouldn't have been there, and it was already on. The listing had 5 stars and over 200 reviews. That's the part I keep coming back to. My girlfriend and I booked a converted barn about 40 minutes outside Asheville, North Carolina. It was late October, and the photos showed this gorgeous stone building surrounded by bare trees, string lights along the porch, a wood-burning stove inside. The kind of place you save on Pinterest. The host was a woman named Catherine who lived in the main house about 300 feet up the gravel drive. She met us when we arrived, handed us the keys, and told us to text if we needed anything. She was maybe 60, perfectly friendly, nothing unusual. The first thing I noticed inside was how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet, that thick, pressurized silence you get when you're truly far from any road. The barn had been beautifully renovated, exposed beams, a loft bedroom with a skylight, a clawfoot tub in the corner of the bathroom. But it smelled faintly like something I couldn't place. Not mold, not cleaning products. Something organic, like old flowers left in a vase too long. We unpacked, made dinner, and went to bed around 11. Sometime around 2 in the morning, I woke up to a faint crackling sound, like static. I lay there listening and realized it was coming from the nightstand on my girlfriend's side. There was a small white device plugged into the wall. I got up and looked at it. It was a baby monitor receiver. I thought it was strange, but figured it was left from a previous guest, maybe a family with a kid. I unplugged it and went back to sleep. The next morning, I mentioned it to my girlfriend. She hadn't noticed it. I plugged it back in out of curiosity, and the static was still there, but now, underneath it, I could hear something. Breathing. Slow, rhythmic breathing. I turned it off and told myself it was picking up interference from Catherine's house. That afternoon, while my girlfriend was in the bath, I walked around the barn looking for the transmitter, the other half of the baby monitor. I found it behind a decorative shelf in the loft bedroom, wedged between a book and the wall. It was on. The green light was steady. It had been broadcasting the entire time we'd been there. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I took the transmitter and walked outside. From the porch, I could see Catherine's house up the hill. The curtains in one of the upstairs windows moved. Not like wind, like someone stepping back. We left within the hour. I didn't say anything to Catherine. I didn't text her. I just packed our bags and drove. My girlfriend thought I was overreacting, but she hadn't heard the breathing on that receiver. It wasn't the sound of someone sleeping. It was the sound of someone listening. I reported it to Airbnb. They said they'd investigate. The listing is still up. Still 5 stars. I checked last week. The only thing that's changed is the photos. The nightstand on the left side of the bed is empty now. That one is unsettling in a way that creeps up on you. The next story is worse. This one comes from a traveler who checked into a basement apartment in Portland. He found something in the bathroom that told him someone had been there recently. And then he found out they hadn't actually left. There was a man's razor in the medicine cabinet. That's what I noticed first. Not a disposable one, a proper safety razor, heavy, with a dark wooden handle, still wet. I'd checked into a basement apartment in Portland, Oregon. One of those below street level units with its own entrance around the side of a house. The host lived upstairs. His name was Derek. The listing said the space was recently renovated, private entrance, self-check-in with a lockbox code. I arrived around 9 at night after a delayed flight. The street was residential and dark, big trees blocking the streetlights, and I had to use my phone flashlight to find the lockbox on the side gate. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. Concrete floors, low ceiling, one window near the top of the wall that looked out at ground level to the backyard. The bed was made. There was a mini fridge and a coffee maker. Everything matched the photos. But when I went to brush my teeth, that's when I found the razor. And next to the sink, a towel that was damp. I messaged Derek. I said something like, "Hey, I think the previous guest might have left some things in the bathroom." He responded quickly, "No one stayed last night. Might be mine, sorry. I'll grab it tomorrow." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Around midnight, I was in bed scrolling my phone when I heard a sound from the closet. The apartment had a single closet with sliding doors near the foot of the bed. The sound was a soft scrape, like fabric shifting against wood. I stared at the closet. The doors were closed. I told myself it was the building settling or maybe pipes. Then I heard it again. And this time, I heard something else beneath it. A slow exhale. I didn't move. I don't think I breathed for 10 seconds. I turned on every light in the apartment from my phone. The place had smart bulbs. In the full brightness, I stared at the closet doors. There was a gap at the bottom, maybe an inch. And in that gap, just barely visible against the concrete floor, I could see the shadow of 2 feet. Someone was standing in the closet. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and my shoes, and I walked out the front door as calmly and as quickly as I could. I didn't run. Some part of my brain told me that if I ran, whatever was in that closet would know I knew. I got in my rental car and drove to a hotel near the airport. I called the police from the hotel. They went to the apartment and found the closet empty, but they also found that the window near the top of the wall, the one that looked out at ground level, had a broken latch. It could be opened from outside. There were smudge marks on the wall below it, like someone had been climbing in and out. Derek told the police he'd had issues with a former tenant who'd been evicted 6 months prior. The man had kept a copy of the original key. He'd reportedly been seen in the neighborhood multiple times since. I don't know if that man was in the closet that night. The police never confirmed it, but I know what I saw under that door. And I know that razor was wet. I still think about the moment I turned those lights on, the way I forced myself to walk and not run. The last story tonight is the one that disturbed me the most to read. It comes from someone who stayed alone in a Vermont farmhouse in the middle of winter. On the 3rd night, they went into a room they were told to stay out of. What they found in there, I'll let them tell it. The Wi-Fi password was written on a chalkboard in the kitchen. Underneath it, in smaller letters, someone had written, "Please don't go in the attic. I was staying alone in a farmhouse in rural Vermont." It was February. I was between jobs and wanted a week of total isolation to clear my head. The listing was cheap, suspiciously cheap in retrospect, and described the property as a historic homestead on 12 acres. The host was listed as a property management company, not an individual. Check-in was fully automated. No one was there when I arrived. No one was supposed to be. The house was old, wide plank floors that groaned with every step, wallpaper peeling in the hallways, a kitchen with a cast iron stove that actually worked. The heat came from a pellet stove in the living room, and the bedrooms upstairs were cold enough that I could see my breath. But it had a certain charm, the kind of place where you light candles and read books and pretend you're in a different century. The first 2 nights were fine. Quiet, almost too quiet. No traffic, no neighbors, just wind and the occasional crack of a branch under snow. On the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to make tea and noticed a door in the hallway I hadn't opened before. It wasn't locked. Behind it was a narrow staircase going up. The attic. I know the chalkboard said not to go up there, but I want to be honest. That made me more curious, not less. I figured it was unfinished or structurally unsound. I turned on my phone light and went up. The attic was one long room with a low, pitched ceiling. It was freezing. There were boxes, old furniture, nothing unusual. But along the far wall, someone had pinned photographs. Dozens of them, maybe 50 or 60, arranged in rows. They were all of the bedroom I was sleeping in. Every photo was taken from the same angle, from the corner near the closet, looking toward the bed. And in every photo, there was someone in the bed. Different people, different seasons, based on the blankets and the light. Some were clearly asleep. Some were reading. One was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking down at their phone. They were all taken without the subject knowing. My hands were shaking. I stepped closer and looked at the most recent row. The last photo on the bottom right was of me, asleep. From the night before, I was wearing the same shirt I'd worn to bed. The blanket was pulled up to my chest, exactly as I remembered it. I ran downstairs. I checked the bedroom. In the corner near the closet, high up near where the wall met the ceiling, there was a small hole, maybe half an inch wide. I hadn't noticed it before because there was a nail next to it with a coat hook that drew your eye. But the hole was there, and when I looked into it, I could see a faint glint of glass on the other side. A camera. I left the house at 3 in the morning. I drove 2 hours through snow to Burlington and sat in a 24-hour diner until the sun came up. I reported everything to Airbnb and to the local police. The property management company said they had no knowledge of any camera or any photographs. The listing was removed within 48 hours. But here's what I still think about. There were at least 50 photographs on that wall. 50 different people in that bed. And the photos were printed. Someone had taken the time to print and pin each one like a collection. I was photo number 50-something. I don't know what number comes after you stop being just a photo. And that's where tonight's file closes. But the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.